The story begins with a boy called Arel sitting with his family for lunch. Arel's father feels surprised by how calm his son is, saying that he couldn't sleep at all, thinking about what hero class his son would get. His mother also exclaims that she is excited, while his older sister feels confident that her brother will outshine all of his classmates. Their mother agrees with her daughter, thinking that her son will attract all the girls with his charm, which makes Arel's sister suddenly worry that he might be taken away from her. However, Arel is more in touch with reality than his family, believing that he will just turn out to be another average guy. In Arel's world, hero classes are gifts from a higher being, granted to youngsters when they turn 10, allowing them to specialize in various skills. Once it is time for the blessing ceremony, all the students gather in school, and a priest begins with the first boy. He puts his hand on the boy's forehead, and the boy quickly sees an image of fire and hammers, confirming that he will be a blacksmith. The boy runs back to his father, beaming with joy, and then the priest starts to work on all of the remaining students one by one. Finally, once it is Arel's turn, his sister says with excitement that he will get a special blessing for sure. Arel walks up to the priest while his family cheers proudly for him. People around them start whispering in envy about Arel, believing that he will get advanced classes like his parents, Farah and Leon, who are known as the Sword Princess and Archmage. Once Arel gets close to the priest, he closes his eyes and focuses his mind, but he fails to see anything. The priest feels surprised that he doesn't have a blessing, and then announces that Arel is a rare case of a classless hero. Arel's family instantly loses their excitement, thinking that they got completely scammed, and that his fate is ruined as a talentless failure. The very next day, Arel begins practicing ordinary swordsmanship. His parents assure him that they will not kick him out of the house. Arel tells them that he is doing fine and just doesn't want to be a freeloader, while his sister promises that she will keep supporting him no matter what. Seeing how concerned his family is, Arel once again reminds them that he has always been practicing swordsmanship with his mother, so he can still be useful despite not having a class. However, deep inside, he thinks that his mother is an awful teacher because she always blows him away in training with her incredible strength. As he finishes his explanation, Arel's mother feels happy that her son is so wise, while his father thinks that he might actually be able to get a real job in the future. Seeing them all fawn over him, Arel gets sick of his family's attention and leaves to train. As he walks into the training ground, Arel finds two swordsman-class students dueling it out with their swords. While fighting, the boys notice Arel and ask what he is doing here without a class. He calmly tells them that he is going to train just like them, but the boys laugh and tell him that they are only having fun with their swords since they don't actually have to train because their class gives them strength automatically. Then they offer to show Arel how much skill they have gained from their class and start sparring once again. While watching them fight, Arel notices how smooth their movements are because of the swordsman class, and then asks them to fight him. One of the boys bursts out laughing at his audacity for challenging them without a class, but Arel simply thinks that he doesn't need one. Feeling insulted, the boy accepts Arel's challenge to teach him a lesson. Before fighting, the boy asks Arel to make sure he still has the protection blessing, which is a temporary shield everyone gains at birth that recharges when the user isn't receiving damage. Arel nods and confirms that he won't lose his life to the boy's powerful attacks and tells him to get ready for the duel. Enraged by his constant taunting, the boy charges at Arel and swings his sword, but to his shock, Arel easily parries it. Then Arel dodges another slash before locking the boy in a parry. The boy's partner thinks he is just having fun and tells him to finish the match quickly, but the boy tells him that Arel isn't so easy to fight. As they continue trading parries, the boy realizes that he can't beat Arel on his own, so he cheats and asks his partner to gang up on him. The other boy jumps at Arel from behind, but he senses the attack and dodges it at the last second. Watching the two boys argue with each other, Arel realizes that their class doesn't help them with teamwork, and he swoops in to finish them both off. The boys notice him coming, but suddenly Arel vanishes from their sight before appearing under one of them and knocking him clean out with a jaw punch. As his teammate falls, the other boy rushes to attack Arel, but he trips over his own friend, giving Arel the chance to knock him out as well. With both boys on the ground, Arel calmly announces that he won the fight, but they get angry and claim that he attacked them while their guard was down. As they ask Arel for a rematch, he easily agrees. However, before it starts, a boy behind them warns the others not to try it, reminding them that they can't make cheap excuses like that if they fail on the battlefield. After the red-haired boy tells them they're a disgrace to all swordsmen, one of the two boys tries talking back to him, but his friend reminds him of the red-haired boy's high status. The redhead then walks up to Arel and asks if he is the son of the sword princess Farah. When Arel nods, the boy praises him for learning some solid swordsmanship from his mother. However, he reminds Errol that the two swordsmen he took down are just inexperienced children. Then, pointing his sword at him, he challenges him to a real fight. The boy declares that he will prove the real power of the swordsman class, while the two other boys whisper and wonder if he is the son of the village security captain, Evan. The boy confirms his identity, and Errol remembers that his father used to contact his mother to hunt monsters. Looking at him, Errol thinks that the cute boy looks nothing like his father, and wonders if he will also turn into a gruff-looking man when he grows older. The boy's shoulders start trembling as he praises his father for being a powerful swordsman and wise mentor. He says that it's unfair that despite his father's great qualities, Errol's mother unfairly stole away his father's title of the village's strongest swordsman. At his jealous words, Errol realizes that the boy is just taking out his frustration on him because he hates his mother. The redhead feels embarrassed to get called out, but asks Errol if he thinks the same. Errol calmly confirms that his mother is indeed the strongest person in their village, but the boy insists that he inherited the best swordsman talent from his father, so he will defeat Errol to prove that his family is superior. After calming down, the boy tells Errol that he already became a swordsman a year ago and has been training hard under his father ever since. With his dedicated practice, the boy thinks he has no chance of losing. However, Arel reminds him that he also received guidance from his powerful mother, so he's not going to lose against him either. Both boys raise their swords to begin the fight, and the redhead attacks first. Arel parries his attack and strikes back, and the two engage in a fierce battle. Watching them exchange blows, the other two boys feel shocked that Arel is keeping up with the redhead despite being classless. Watching the boy swing his sword, Arel admits that he is much stronger than the other two, but he notices that his moves are driven by anger. Arel waits for him to slip up and then attacks once he gets an opening. However, the boy suddenly unleashes a twin slice skill, which drives Arel back into a wall. The redhead feels surprised that his first slice was blocked, but he notices that Arel got injured by the second. Finally losing his calm, Errol asks about the boy's ability, and the boy explains that it is a swordsman class skill that can't be blocked by someone classless. However, Errol feels determined that he can learn to block it with enough practice, and the redhead praises his resilience. A few days later, Errol's sister watches him snore late in the morning and tries to wake him up with a kiss. He gets up before she can touch him, coldly knocking her away with his head. Errol's sister gets offended and demands an apology kiss as he leaves his room to get breakfast. Their mother smiles and serves breakfast, and the family sits down to eat together. Errol's sister asks him if he is going to train again, and he nods. This angers her, and she tells him to take it easy and let her support him. However, Errol ignores her and gets up to leave. His sister then wonders why he has been going out to train daily ever since he returned home beaten into a pulp. Farah reassures her daughter that Errol will be fine, explaining that they have a secret she doesn't know. She takes her outside and opens a chest full of broken swords, revealing just how hard Errol has been training the past few days. While his sister feels surprised, Errol's mother feels happy that her boy got inspired after dueling with other kids. Errol's determination also cheers up his sister, but she still wants to create a world where classless people like him aren't discriminated against. While her mother smiles at her noble goal, meanwhile, in a forest, Arel is whacking at a training target on a tree before backing up for an attack. He then unleashes a twin slice, just like the redhead, and feels satisfied with his power. While Arel thinks getting beaten up by the redhead was worth it, a goblin silently stalks him in some bushes. The goblin suddenly jumps out to attack with its club, but Errol turns around and defeats it with a twin slice, feeling proud of his skill's power. Suddenly, a large monster roars behind him. He turns around, intending to report the monster's appearance to village security, but he stops after hearing a panicked scream. Finding the scream familiar, Errol quickly realizes that he doesn't have time to call security before that person gets hurt. He grabs his sword's handle and runs into the forest, mentally assuring himself that he will be fine. Once he gets close to the source, Errol peeks from a bush and finds the redhead with a bloodied arm. Then he notices a giant hobgoblin looming over the boy, and wonders why it appeared. Errol then realizes that the redhead was also practicing like him and defeated some wild goblins, which must have attracted the leading hobgoblin. While the hobgoblin backs the boy into a corner, Errol gets behind it and prepares to launch his attack from the best angle. Errol takes a deep breath to prepare, and the redhead thinks it's all over for him. The hobgoblin raises its club for the finishing blow, but suddenly, Arel cuts it down with a twin slice attack. After the monster falls to the ground, Errol thinks that he has finally mastered the technique's footwork. The redhead tries to walk but stumbles into Errol's arms. Noticing that the boy lost his protection blessing, Errol asks if he has any holy water to heal his wounds. The boy silently looks at his smashed water bottle on the ground. So Arel offers him his own holy water. After he drinks it, his wounds disappear, and the redhead feels annoyed by how strong Arel has gotten. Errol notices that his energy has returned, and the boy thanks him for his water before asking again about his powerful skill. Errol calmly reminds him that it's just a twin slice, but the boy asks how he learned it without a class. Knowing that ordinary people can't learn special skills, Errol explains that he pushed his training to the limits for this one. The redhead feels confused, so Errol explains further that he learned the skill by adjusting to its timing and footwork. Then Errol tells the redhead that he was the most important resource since he helped him understand the skill after beating him up dozens of times with it. While the boy feels overwhelmed by this information, Errol tells him that he's been training the twin slice skill specifically to defeat him in their rematch. Feeling impressed by Errol's dedication, the redhead accepts his rematch challenge. Errol asks him if he's sure, but the boy tells him that it's the least he can do after he saved him and healed his wounds. Errol feels surprised that he knows how to repay favors, and the boy feels insulted by his low opinion of him. Soon, both boys get ready with their swords and begin their duel with a twin slice at the same time. While feeling shocked that Arel blocked both of the slices, the redhead suddenly gets hit by a surprise attack. He wonders what it was, and Arel tells him that he added a third slice. The redhead reminds Arel that it's called twin slice, but Arel explains that because he didn't get a predefined skill from a class, he can mold his technique into whatever he wants. He reveals to the boy that this was his first time successfully using the third strike, which leaves him even more frustrated. The redhead thinks that a swordsman's skill isn't supposed to lose to anyone, so Errol tells him that he'll prove it in another match. Both boys raise their swords again, and the redhead calms down, thinking that he has a speed advantage over Errol, as both of them unleash their twin slices. The redhead watches carefully for Errol's third slice. However, the third slice's speed still catches him off guard and knocks him down despite trying to block it. Errol points his sword at the defeated boy and tells him that this result was only to be expected. The redhead asks him why his third strike is so fast, so Errol explains that he actually learned the trick from him. Errol reveals that he controls his first two strikes to be slower, and then applies all of his strength to the third strike to catch his opponent off guard. Feeling completely outclassed, the redhead gnashes his teeth in defeat, and Errol walks away victorious. A few days later, as Arel's family is having dinner, Farah reveals that Evan's son has left to train at Brea. Surprised by this news, Errol asks what Brea is, and his mother explains that it is the City of Swords. She tells him that she used to train at a guild there before her marriage, and Errol feels excited to visit the city and explore his full potential as a classless hero. 5 years later, an older Errol was traveling to Brea City on a carriage. As they passed through a dense forest, the carriage driver informed everyone that they would soon reach Brestia after climbing a hill. Inside the carriage, a woman asked her fellow passengers if they were all headed to the same place. A barbarian swordsman responded coldly, clearly annoyed. The woman, confused by his tone, asked why he was so angry. The barbarian pointed at her revealing outfit and called it trashy, but the woman quickly defended herself, explaining that wearing less clothing was better for her dual swordsman class. Both swordsmen began arguing, their tempers flaring, until the carriage driver interrupted to comment on how powerful their advanced classes must be. But suddenly, the driver stopped the carriage in alarm. A horde of wild orcs had appeared in front of them. He turned to the two swordsmen and told them to prove their power. However, all their earlier bravado vanished as the orc king stood up before them. Terrified, the two swordsmen froze. A commoner lady inside the carriage grabbed a boy's arm in fear, but the boy shoved her away and ran for his life. The woman followed him in panic, and soon even the carriage driver decided to flee. But Errol stayed calm, quietly stepping forward He drew his sword and dashed straight into the horde of orcs. The driver stopped in disbelief as he watched Errol tear through the monsters with incredible speed. He recognized Errol's blink dash skill immediately, but as more orcs surrounded the young man, the driver thought Errol wouldn't make it out alive. Then, before anyone could blink, Errol spun like a tornado, slicing through all the orcs in one swift, graceful motion. The driver was left speechless. He realized that Errol's technique was the legendary blade dance, a skill known to belong only to the Sword Princess, a female class. How could Errol, a man, use that technique? In front of the stunned onlookers, Errol dodged the Orc King's massive weapon, jumped over its head, and drove his sword straight through its skull. The monstrous creature fell lifelessly to the ground. After finishing the battle, Errol returned calmly to the carriage and asked the driver to take him to Bria. The driver was astonished by his strength, saying Errol was already too powerful. But Errol simply replied that he wanted to get even stronger. A young passenger, excited by what he had witnessed, asked Errol about his class. To everyone's shock, Errol revealed that he was completely classless. It turned out that 5 years earlier, Errol had shown his mother the twin slice skill he had learned from a red-haired warrior. His mother thought she was dreaming, but Errol explained that he could learn skills even without having a class. Then he asked her to teach him the Sword Princess techniques before he left for Bria to train more seriously. His mother had been starstruck by his talent and couldn't stop bragging to the rest of the family. Errol's dream ended abruptly when the carriage driver woke him up. They had arrived in Brestia. As he stepped out, Errol noticed many swordsmen around him, including several advanced ones. Curious, he asked the carriage driver about his own class. The driver acted modest, claiming to be just a normal man, but Errol pointed out that the driver had perfectly recognized his swordsman techniques, which meant he was strong himself. Feeling caught, the driver admitted that he was actually an advanced holy knight. Errol asked why someone so powerful was driving carriages, and the man explained that whenever he got tired of battle, he took breaks doing simple jobs. Errol nodded, understanding that even great warriors needed rest. Before leaving, the driver advised Errol to join a sword guild to start building his career. He told him about the many tournaments in Brea where he could win good money and reputation, but warned that he'd need guild membership to participate. Errol agreed, eager to test his skills against stronger opponents, and thanked the man. After the driver left, Errol entered the bustling city and found 2 guilds recruiting new members. Calvar's guild for knight swordsmen, and another guild open to everyone. Just as he was deciding, a girl suddenly ran toward him and causing her to fall flat on her face. Amazed, she wondered how he dodged her, without even looking, concluding that he must be powerful enough to sense her movements. She quickly asked if he was interested in joining a guild, and when Errol nodded, she launched into a desperate sales pitch for her own. She even handed him a contract, but Errol simply walked away without saying a word. Frustrated, the girl grabbed his belt to stop him. Errol told her bluntly that she looked too desperate and that her guild was probably weak if she had to beg for members. Trying to save face, the girl introduced herself as Lilia and offered to go on a date with him if he joined. Errol calmly replied that he wasn't interested, leaving her speechless. He thought she reminded him of his older sister, arrogant, flat-chested, and overly confident. When he asked Lilia about the strongest guild in Bria, she got angry at the insult but controlled herself. She told him that the most powerful guild was Black Blade, boasting 8 A-ranked swordsmen. She even gave him directions to their headquarters. Errol went straight there and approached the entrance. A guard asked his business, and Errol said he wanted to join. The guard told him to take a test and led him to a registration line. When it was his turn, the receptionist explained that only advanced classes could apply. Errol said he was classless, and the man burst out laughing, telling him to leave. The other swordsmen in line whispered among themselves, mocking him. Calmly, Errol asked to take the test anyway, confident he could pass, but the receptionist refused. Rules were rules. As the tension rose, a group of A-ranked swordsmen entered the hall, their presence commanding everyone's attention. Errol sighed and decided to try his luck elsewhere. He visited several other guilds, but each one rejected him without even letting him demonstrate his skills. Feeling discouraged, he remembered the letter of recommendation his mother had given him before he left home, a letter meant to help him join her old guild. He had dismissed it back then, thinking she was being overprotective, but now he realized she had known this would happen. As Errol headed toward his mother's guild, Lilia appeared again, still begging him to join hers. He ignored her, but she followed him through the city, promising to do anything if he helped her save her guild. even lick his boots if she had to. Errol walked away in disgust as onlookers stared, and Lilia screamed that she would never give up. When he finally found his mother's old guild, Lilia suddenly caught up to him and pointed proudly at the large building. She said he was welcome to join. It was her guild, Dragon Fang. Errol was surprised that such a big guild could be struggling, and Lilia explained that they had fallen from their past glory. Still, she was determined to restore the guild's reputation, founded by none other than the legendary Dual Swords King. Hearing that name, Errol remembered that his mother had once been a member of Dragon Fang in her youth, so he agreed to check it out. Inside, Lilia led him to a seat. Suddenly, a drunk man stumbled out from behind a sofa. It was her father, the Dual Swords King himself. Lilia scolded him for drinking, reminding him that the doctor had forbidden it and that they couldn't afford alcohol anyway, but her father ignored her and told Errol to leave, saying the guild was doomed. Errol noticed the man's missing arm and realized why his fighting days were over. Lilia sadly explained that her father had once been one of the top swordsmen in Bray, but his career ended after losing his arm. She assumed Errol would refuse to join such a failing guild, but to her surprise, he agreed. Overjoyed, Lilia quickly brought him a contract to sign. As he handed it back, she noticed his class field was blank. At first, she thought it was a joke, but when Errol showed her his official certificate, she froze, then drew her sword in anger, threatening to give him a deceased class if he didn't leave immediately. Errol asked why she was reacting that way, and she yelled that she needed real swordsmen, not classless nobodies. Still furious from earlier humiliation, she was about to throw him out when another woman entered, Rihanna. Lilia immediately ran to Rihanna, crying that a classless scammer was trying to trick her. But Rihanna froze when she saw Errol. To his confusion, she seemed to recognize him. She reminded him that they were from the same hometown and had sparred as children. Errol didn't remember at first, but when she mentioned they had met 5 years ago, he realized she was the red-haired boy he had fought back then. Rihanna blushed as she explained she was Captain Evans's daughter. She had just looked different then. Errol apologized for not recognizing her and, perhaps unintentionally, complimented her appearance, saying he'd never forget a beauty like her. Embarrassed, Rihanna's face turned bright red. Lilia asked her if Errol was really the same classless boy who had defeated her, and when Rihanna nodded, Lilia couldn't believe it. Rihanna, still bitter from her old defeat, challenged Errol to a rematch. They went to the training ground, where Lilia acted as referee. Rihanna began with her twin slice attack, and Errol thought he could easily block it, but the blade slipped through his guard and struck him. Rihanna dropped her sword and explained that it was 5 times heavier than normal, so his counter technique wouldn't work. Her brute swordsman class also gave her enhanced attack power. Errol was impressed by her progress, but realized that fighting her head-on would lead to defeat. Rihanna kept attacking, determined to prove herself. Errol noticed how she was revealing her fighting style and asked why. She said she didn't care. Beating him was worth it. Smiling, Errol told her she couldn't hit him with her speed. Rihanna charged again, but her strikes hit nothing but air. Errol had vanished. A moment later, he appeared behind her and struck her neck lightly. Shocked, she realized he had used the shadow step, a supreme swordsman technique. Errol explained it casually, saying it was just about moving fast. Rihanna found his explanation irritating, but he assured her it had taken years of practice. The duel continued until Errol realized his attacks weren't piercing her defense barrier. Rihanna smirked, explaining that her brute class also gave her boosted defense. She tried to land another hit, but Errol countered smoothly and disarmed her, using a counter technique he said he learned from his mother. Rihanna fell to her knees, defeated. Lilia declared Errol the winner. Rihanna felt crushed, tears forming in her eyes as Errol praised her growth, but admitted he was still stronger. She burst into tears and ran off, while Lilia yelled at Errol for making her cry. Confused, Errol insisted he was only complimenting her. From inside, they could hear Rihanna sobbing about losing even after 5 years of hard training. Later, Lilia accepted Errol as a member of Dragon Fang, her tone suddenly cheerful and respectful. Errol noticed her complete change in attitude but ignored it. When he asked why the guild was in decline, Lilia awkwardly whispered that they were in debt, a huge one. She explained that they could pay it off by winning an upcoming tournament, but they needed at least 3 members to participate. Errol asked about Rihanna, and Lilia said that when Rihanna first arrived in Brea, every big guild had rejected her, but Lilia's father had taken her in. Out of gratitude, Rihanna had stayed loyal to them ever since. Errol nodded and smiled, confident they could easily pay off the debt by winning. But Lilia was nervous. The tournament allowed up to 5-member teams, and they only had 3. Despite her worries, Arel was thrilled. He said that fighting powerful opponents was the reason he came to Brea in the first place. Watching from the shadows, the old guildmaster smiled, having recognized the incredible potential in the young swordsman. And that was the end of episode 2.